Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. This week we begin Parshas Sh'mos. In English, it's called the Book of Exodus. And here we find something in which it's so difficult to comprehend. The vast Egyptian empire was funded and financed by Yosef, and there was additional great blessing that resulted from the arrival of Yaakov, who was revered. Our commentaries say that Yaakov instructed Yosef that he should be buried immediately in Hebron in Israel, for he was concerned that the Egyptians might consider him a deity and deify him. Amongst other reasons, he said, "Take me to Hebron, I should not be buried here." We see that when he died, that there was 70 days they mourned and grieved the entire nation. The great wealth, power, might, success of Egypt truly can be attributed to Yosef and Yaakov. And yet after Yosef, his brothers, and that entire generation die, we find that Paro says, he says to his nation, Hine, behold, Am b'nei Yisrael, the nation of the children of Israel, Rav v'atzum mimenu. They are more numerous and more mighty than we are. Let us be wise and let us consider how we should deal with this problem. And as we know, they embittered their lives, they enslaved them, states that they took if our quota wasn't met with finishing building walls with bricks, they would take little children and they would use them as fillers. Later, when it says that Paro died, our commentaries say he didn't actually die, but he was afflicted with saras. He was told the only cure is to bathe in human blood. And he took the children of Klal Yisrael, slaughtering them. It's inconceivable, the horrors and the suffering that our people had to endure. What exactly did Paro see that should turn him to turn his advisors, to turn the people of Egypt, who owed their entire success to Yosef and to Yaakov, and to say, no, these people now have to be dealt with? How could they become oblivious to the greatness of Yosef? Our commentaries say that this Paro did not know Yosef, meaning, how could he not know Yosef? It's like saying, we in America don't know Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Lahavdil. Everybody knew Yosef. They were naming their children after him. Streets were named after him, boulevards, cities. He said that Yosef wasn't a Jew. Yes, he proclaimed that these people were his family so that he should look as though he comes from aristocracy. But Yosef wasn't a Jew. He couldn't have been a Jew. And the Jews are different. What is the difference that he saw? In addition, in this verse, there are some unique details. It says that Paro vayome elam, he spoke to his nation. How did he speak to his nation? Did he have a televised broadcast? Did he have a news conference? Did he tweet? What did he do? It shouldn't say he spoke to his nation. It should say he spoke to his sages. He spoke to his senate. He spoke to his advisors, his elders. What does it mean he spoke to his nation? And then he says, Hine, behold. Whenever we see the word Hine, it suggests something new. This is something new that we've never experienced. What? What is new that he saw? And he says, Am b'nei Yisrael, the nation of the children of Israel. Why does he refer to Klal Yisrael as the nation and the children of Israel? He could have said, behold, the nation of Israel. Or he could have said, behold, the children of Israel. What is he pointing out by saying, behold, the nation, the children of Israel? And then he concludes and he says, they are more numerous, more mighty than we are. Now we know that the Jewish people were increasing in their population exponentially. The women were having 4, 5, 6 children at a time. All the children were healthy. But even so, we're talking about a period of less than 2 centuries. Is it possible that 70 people in 2 centuries, let's say we became 2 million, in 2 centuries, which is incredible. The Egyptians must have been tens of millions. There must have been 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 million Egyptians. What does he mean that we're more numerous and more mighty? These questions are addressed by the Klei Yakar. The Klei Yakar says, this is what Paro's concern was. He spoke to his nation, meaning he spoke to his cabinet, his Senate, his Congress, and he spoke to them about his nation. He was telling them, we have a problem here in regard to the nation of Egyptians, because behold, there is something taking place which has never taken place before. We've had people, we've had tribes who've come here and moved here, families. And after a generation or two, they assimilate, they marry the Egyptians, they adopt our culture, and they become one with us, sort of like a melting pot. They become part of the Egyptian empire. Yes, they might have some customs, and maybe they have their own language, but they are basically Egyptians. They become members of our country, loyal, faithful members. We don't have to be concerned. But behold, look at this. There's another nation here amongst us. The children of Israel are the Am B'nai Israel. They are the nation of the children of Israel, meaning they've been here for over 190 years. And 210 years was our experience in Egypt. 210 years in Egypt, over 2 centuries. And they have not assimilated. Oh, yes, the prophet Ezekiel tells us that there were many who turned to the idolatry that was introduced to them. But when it came to marriage, they married only their own. When it came to their customs, they adhered to the customs that they had. They did not eat from the Gid Nosha, the sciatic nerve. They all had the bris milah, the covenant of Abraham. They were a nation amongst themselves. They did not become one with the Egyptians. And we have here in Egypt something to be greatly concerned about. We've got 2 nations living within one border, the Egyptians and the nation of the children of Israel. And that we must be concerned, because it's a separate nation, and who knows, one day they might rebel against us. Maybe there'll be a war, and maybe they'll turn against us, or maybe they'll just say, it's not our fight, and pick themselves up and leave, and we'll have an incredible vacuum. This is the concern. And therefore, although maybe if we look at the numbers, the Egyptians are far greater in number than the children of Israel. But the Egyptians are comprised of different people. Even natural Egyptians in different cities might have different pronunciations. They might have some different customs. These Jewish people, they all have the same customs. They all have the same ancestors. They all look to Abraham and Sarah and Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov, Rachel and Leah, Bilhah and Zilpah. They all have one strong identity. And they might be less in number than we are, but they are so unified. They are a family. And a family, even when they're outnumbered, they will defend each other to the nth degree with all of their ability. They'll fight above and beyond their physical means to protect one of their own. Egyptians, yes, we belong to the same country, but do we feel that we are one family, that we shall jeopardize our own safety to protect others? Probably not. When the times get very difficult, we'll abandon those and run to save ourselves. Not the Jewish people. They are one, and that makes them, it's equivalent to, they would be twice our size in numbers and certainly more mighty. And what is the source of this might? What is the source that makes them so unique that they are a separate nation? They are Bnei Yisrael. They identify themselves, we are the children of Israel. We are the descendants of Yaakov, Yitzchak, Abraham, and the matriarchs who were crowned with the great title Israel, meaning those who can triumph of man against man and against even angels. That's what it means, Yisrael. That's the name that was given to Yaakov when he was able to overcome the challenge from the guardian angel of Esav. You are indeed Yisrael. We are the Bnei Yisrael. Klal Yisrael knew that. Yes, there were those who were weak, and there were those who became influenced by the infiltration of the forces of assimilation, but we never forgot our identity. We knew we were the children of Israel, and therein lies the might and the strength of Klal Yisrael. Now, in truth, there were no greater, more dedicated citizens of Paro and Egypt than the children of Israel. We paid our taxes. We contributed in every way, in every field, in medicine and science and engineering and architecture, in history and in philosophy. Klal Yisrael was involved. But Paro became concerned. He felt that he didn't have the mastery and control. There was no reason for him to be concerned. Maybe it was just an innate envy, a hatred that he had for those in whom he sensed perhaps a superiority of identity. This is the anti-Semitism that we deal with to this day. Klal Yisrael is unique. We have been chosen by God. We have a mission. And we are one family. We are the descendants of Abraham and Sarah. That's our identity. That's who we are. Yes, there might be those who have gone astray, and maybe they don't appreciate what it means to be a Jew, but we are still Bnei Yisrael. To recognize the honor, the privilege of belonging to this unique group. But we're very exclusive. Is it nice to be so exclusive? Well, the great Ivy League schools are very exclusive. The great medical schools are very exclusive. Any organization which has standards of excellence is exclusive. It has to be, or else it will lose its identity, will water down. We won't have the education. We won't have the professionals. Klal Yisrael, the members of Klal Yisrael, they belong to this exclusive club, but the exclusive club doesn't entitle us to go on vacations and play golf. It entitles us to serve our Creator. And that's what we were chosen for, to introduce man to the knowledge of God. That's what it means that we are God's firstborn. We're the ones who made him known as the king. As Moshe says later to Paro, Hashem, God, the creator, the sustainer of all life, has sent me to you. And Paro says, I don't know this Hashem. Elohim, God of forces and nature and might, that I know. A God of compassion who creates and sustains and is involved in human affairs. I don't know this God you're talking about. But Klal Yisrael's mission is to be a light unto the nations and introduce them to this concept. The loving, kind, benevolent God who has created and sustains and will accept us even with our flaws and always awaits for us to return. If only we would comprehend how blessed we are to be members of this unique family, the children of Israel. There is no greater gift that we can present to our children and grandchildren than the knowledge of what it means to be B'nai Yisrael. Am B'nai Yisrael, this unique, remarkable nation, the children of Israel. Then they will have a strong identity, a purpose in their existence. And that's the formula for our achieving might, not physical might, the might that is found when we are all attuned and focused on our spiritual mission and task. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay Jewish. Have a good Shabbos.